By the time the open house signs appeared on my block, I was already living in a home I apparently didn't own. Strangers walked through my foyer, complimented the crown molding I installed with my late husband, and asked my golden retriever if he came with the property. A realtor I had never met handed out glossy flyers with my address at the top and a price that undercut my mortgage by $40,000. I stood at the end of my driveway with coffee shaking in my hand, reading words that said, "Owner will cooperate, fast close, no contingencies." I read them twice because the word owner wasn't me. It was a name I recognized only because I loved her, my niece. If you've ever woken up and found your life repackaged as a brochure you didn't approve, we might understand each other. If you've ever trusted family with paperwork and learned the hard way that paper can turn to a knife, I'm talking to you. If you've ever signed something you didn't read, tell me about it at the end because I'm going to ask. But right now, I need you to hear this. I didn't lose my house because I was naive. I almost lost it because grief makes you efficient, and efficiency makes you vulnerable. I'm Evelyn Hart. I live in Cedar Ridge, Iowa. I fix things for a living. Porches, plaster, lives when I can. And the day I discovered my house for sale without my consent, I did what any stubborn widow with a tool belt would do. I walked up the steps, past the open house cookies and the lavender diffuser and the realtor's smile, and I said, "Hi, I'm the woman who sleeps in that bedroom you just staged. Would you mind telling me who you think owns my home?" I kept my voice even, but I felt the familiar burn at the back of my throat, the one I used to get when my husband, Tom, would slide a busted hinge across the workbench and ask, "Do you want this to squeak for the rest of our natural lives, or do you want it right?" He wasn't here anymore, but his sentences were, and they kept me steadier than the coffee. The realtor blinked at me like I was a late addition to her to-do list. "We're representing a special situation," she said. "Title's clean, quick transfer, seller wants cash." "Seller?" I asked. My voice was too soft. I cleared my throat and tried again. "Who's the seller?" She tapped the folder and pulled out a page with highlighted lines. She said, "Prospect Bluffs LLC. We're handling it for their managing member, Jenna Crawford." That was my niece's name, not even her married name. Jenna never married. She had a fiancé once, a man with a smile that didn't reach his eyes and a canvas duffel bag that never seemed to be packed because he never seemed to be staying. Last time I saw him, he was carrying drywall sheets for me and telling me he ran networking cables for high-end homes, which might have been true. He lied with so much detail, he sounded like a memoir. "Who signed the listing?" I asked. "Jenna," the realtor said. And then she read something I'll never unhear. "Acting under power of attorney for the prior owner." She kept talking about showings, about a cash buyer already circling, about an investor coming in from Des Moines. But I didn't hear it because my ears were ringing with 6 words that didn't fit inside my bones. Acting under power of attorney. There are sentences that simply do not belong with your name. That was one of mine. The flyer shook in my hand. I folded it in half and slipped it in my coat pocket because I've learned you keep paper, even paper that lies. It keeps lying later, just in case you need it to, for someone who isn't prepared to believe your memory. "Thank you," I said. "You've been very helpful." I walked back to my mailbox like a person walks through an earthquake, one foot deciding and the other one confirming the ground was still there, and I touched the brick just to be sure. I looked at the house I rebuilt after the house of cards collapsed. The house we bought when Tom was alive, the one we gutted together, the one with the scar on the kitchen floor where he dropped the cast iron pan the day we celebrated the finish of the west wall. Scar we never sanded out because it felt like a laugh burned into the wood. I looked at it, and then I went inside, closed the door, locked it, and sat on the bottom step of the staircase and called my niece. She answered on the second ring. "Aunt Evie," she said, too bright. "Hey, what have you done?" I asked. Silence first, Then a flurry of words, a tone she uses when she doesn't want me to hear the shape of a lie. I was gonna call you, I swear. It's a technical thing, just temporary. You listed my house. Aunt Evie, she said again, softer now. You asked me to help with paperwork when Uncle Tom died, remember? Power of attorney ends when a person dies. It ends. We never did one anyway. We talked about it. We printed a form. We never signed it. There's no power of attorney for Tom. And if there was, it would be for Tom, not for me. Tom is gone. She inhaled shakily. Miles said, of course he did. Put Miles on the phone. She didn't. Can you come to the coffee shop? She asked. Please, I don't want to talk about this in front of Mom. She's already... Look, just meet me at Fairgrounds in 20 minutes. I'll explain everything. Explain why a limited liability company with a cheap name is selling my home. She tried to laugh. It came out like a cough. You're going to hate me if we do this over the phone. I already hate this over the phone, I said, but I grabbed my keys anyway. Because she's my sister's daughter, because I remember the way she used to sleep on the couch while her mom worked nights and ask me if houses could hug back, because sometimes loving someone means sitting across from them while they stab you and asking them to explain their technique. It was snowing, a soft Iowa snowfall that doesn't apologize for sticking, the kind that turns a town into a memory of itself. I drove the 3 minutes to Fairgrounds because that's how long it takes in Cedar Ridge to get anywhere. And I parked next to the drunk Christmas reindeer the owner never bothered to take down because now it's a town joke. I walked in, pulled off my gloves, and saw my niece at a corner table with 2 cups between her elbows, like props to suggest a peace offering. She stood, hugged me quick, and sat down before I did. A small power move. I noticed it and filed it away like I file away where I put my stud finder. You look pretty, she said, the way people say bless your heart when they don't mean it. I look tired, I said, because I did. She pushed one of the cups toward me. She got you a black coffee and a cinnamon roll. Bribes make me hungrier, I said, pulling the plate close anyway. The roll was still warm. She watched me take a bite, then folded her hands together like she was praying. I didn't mean to scare you. It's not what it looks like. What does it look like to you? It looks like a way to get you liquid so you can make smarter moves. You have all your money tied up in that house. You're house rich and cash poor. You've been paying for that new van and the permits and the electrician. You've got people to pay. You keep a tiny emergency fund because you think grit is a savings account, but it isn't. I have savings, I said. Barely, she said. She knew because I let her help when Tom died. I let her sort the mail. I let her see me poor and brave at the same time. You told me you wanted to start taking bigger jobs. You told me the county was finally approving accessory dwelling units and that you could build 3 a year steady if you had cash to float lumber. You told me if you had 100,000 liquid, you could double your revenue. I was just trying to make that happen. By selling my house? By temporarily transferring it to an entity that can collateralize it, she said quickly, which is how I knew those words weren't hers. They were Miles. Then we put a line of credit on it. We pull out 90, maybe 100. We move your title back. You stay in the house. Nothing changes, except you get to build 2 ADUs this spring and a 3rd in the fall. It's math. It's theft, I said. She flinched like I'd thrown salt. It's not. You signed. I set the cinnamon roll down and looked at her the way you look at a rotten floorboard before your foot goes through. What did I sign? She said, the quit claim, and winced before she got to the last syllable. It's just a legal thing. Did I sign a quitclaim deed? I asked. Jenna, did I? She looked down at her lap. I brought you papers after the funeral. You were exhausted. You said, I don't want to read anything else. You said, just show me where to sign. I saw the scene as clearly as the scar in my kitchen floor, a stack of envelopes, a casserole dish, the 2 sweet flowers people send when they don't know how to say anything else. I saw my hand moving, my pen making loops. I saw my niece leaning over me, tapping lines with her favorite pen with the Glenor barrel. I saw myself being efficient. The memory made me want to crack my own knuckles. You slid a deed into the stack, I said. She nodded and whispered, I'm sorry. And the notary? The notary came to the house, she said. He knows Miles. Of course he does. He's legit, she added quickly. He has a real stamp. He works remote signings. You looked him up? Miles did, she said. Miles does a lot of your thinking for you, I said. She flushed, and when she finally met my eyes, she was 27 and 9 at the same time. I thought I was helping. I thought I was giving you a runway. I thought you'd be grateful, and then I could finally... Her voice caught, and this was the place where for a second I saw the core of her, this small kid inside the body she's still trying to grow into. I could finally get us out of my mom's house, she said. If the line came through and you paid me a commission, just a small one, I could put first and last on an apartment. Miles says we can't plan a wedding until we have a place of our own. She took a breath, then kept talking fast, like she was afraid I'd stand up before she got the sentences out. He said it's a victimless thing when it's family. He said you would thank us later. He said he'd done it before for a friend and it was fine. When a person tells you they've done a crime before and it worked, they aren't reassuring you. They're letting you know who they are. Don't call it a crime, she whispered. I had your signature. It's legal. Legal is a staircase, and you don't know which floor you're standing on. I looked toward the counter. The barista, Lewis, caught my eye and gave me the half nod he gives me when he knows I'm doing something hard. He came to Cedar Ridge to do 1 year of AmeriCorps and never left. He has better ears than a house cat and a memory like a spool of tape. Where is Miles? I asked. She swallowed. Working. At 10 on a Saturday? He's rigging a server rack, she said, like that was a thing I'd be impressed by. Tell him to meet us here, I said. Tell him he can say the big words with his own mouth. She pulled out her phone, chewed her thumbnail, and texted. The 3 dots appeared, then went away, then returned. She looked up. He says he's on a job in Ankeny, and the guy's a nightmare and can't reschedule. He says he can FaceTime. Or he says I can handle it because it's family. It is family, I said, and that's the only reason I'm not at the county recorder's office right now with a crowbar. You can't crowbar a deed at Evie. Watch me, I said. But I didn't stand, because the truth was, I didn't want to do this like blood enemies. I wanted to do it like people who kept taking each other to softball practice. Jenna, I said, and I made my voice gentle because I meant it. If you fix this right now, we can fix this. Tell me everything you did, every step. And if you didn't understand a step, tell me that too. We have to unscrew it in the reverse order. The LLC, she whispered. We made that first. Prospect Bluffs. It's just a name. Miles did it online with a template and a prepaid card. He put me as managing member. Then we did the deed, then the notary, then we recorded it. Then the title company updated, then the realtor. We had to move fast or we lose the cash buyer. You recorded it, I repeated slowly. At the county. We dropped it off in the slot. They stamped it and mailed us back the copy. And at no point, I said, did your hands start to shake? They're shaking now, she said, and she held her hands over the table to show me. They trembled like leaves. I didn't sleep last night. I thought, it's going to be fine when she sees the money. She'll thank me.
But then the realtor called to tell me about the open house, and I threw up.
I looked at her for a long time, then picked up my coffee, took a sip, and finished the cinnamon roll, because you don't walk into battle on an empty stomach. Here's what we're going to do, I said. In 10 minutes, you're going to put Miles on FaceTime. In 15 minutes, you're going to tell him you're walking across the street with me to the county recorder. In 30 minutes, we're going to ask for a certified copy of everything you filed. In 40 minutes, we're going to see the notary stamp. In 50 minutes, we're going to decide if we call a lawyer or the sheriff or both. Miles isn't going to like that order of operations. I do not care. Her eyes filled. He's going to be so mad, I said. He can file a complaint with the Better Business Bureau of my front porch, I said. He can also meet me like a man, but I'm not holding my breath because I like oxygen. She made a wet little laugh she didn't want to make. She sent the text. Miles said to do whatever I wanted as long as we didn't create exposure. He used that phrase. He was the kind of person who says, create exposure, and thinks it sounds like flossing. I finished my coffee, thanked Lewis with the look we both understood, and stood. At the county recorder's office, there's a plastic plant that collects dust and a bell that doesn't work, so you have to tap your knuckles on the plexiglass until someone emerges from the back room and smiles at you like you just interrupted their card game. I tapped. The woman who came to the window was named Condra, and she has been there since the first bush. She is so good at her job, she doesn't have to prove it. Help you? She asked. I need certified copies of everything recorded under this parcel number for the last 90 days, I said, sliding the paper with my parcel ID I keep in my wallet because Tom taught me to keep it in my wallet. And I need the receipt, the intake form, and the notary details for a deed that was recorded 2 weeks ago. Condra didn't bother with small talk. She scanned the number, typed with 2 fingers, and looked at the screen with a face like a sundial. We have a quit claim. We have a change in tax mailing address. We have an LLC name on file. We have a memo from title indicating chain of title change. I need copies of all of those, I said. And then I added, because it's the Midwest and you get more with kindness than fire. And if I bring you a decent peach pie next week, will you forgive me for ruining your lunch hour? She smiled without looking up. Depends on the crust. Lard, I said. Done, she said. She printed, stapled, punched holes, and slid the packet under the plexiglass like a deck of cards. That'll be $12. I paid, then scanned the papers like my eyes could burn them. There it was. My name, then a line through my name in the typed section where the county changes the database after a recording, then the words Prospect Bluffs LLC. There was the quit claim deed with a notary stamp from a Peter Vale, commission number that looked real because all numbers look real, expiration date 2 years from now. There was my signature, slanted, confident, absolutely me. Under it, the neat cursive of a person who knows how to annul a life with a pen. You okay? Condra asked in a voice that belonged to a woman who has watched people lose and win entire lives across that counter. I signed this, I whispered, to say it out loud, to the air, to see if I could survive the sound. I signed it, and I didn't know what it was. Happens more than you think, she said, not unkindly. Happens in probate, happens in divorce, happens when people get tired. Paper is a hungry dog. Can you tell me if the notary is legit? I asked. We're going to figure it out regardless, but if there's a shortcut. Condra shrugged. You can check with the Secretary of State on the commission number, but whether he's legit or not might not be the hinge that saves you. If the form's right and the signature's yours, you can fight it. But you'll fight it in court. You might win, you might not. Thank you, I said, for the copy, for the lard forgiveness. Make it 2 pies, one for me, one for Ledbetter and Records. He knows things. Ledbetter did know things. He knew that the notary stamp was real because the commission number matched a renewal filed in October. He knew that the quitclaim deed passed their smell test because the names matched tax records and because my signature didn't look like a clenched fist. He knew that Prospect Bluffs LLC filed with the registered agent out of a mailbox place by the highway north of town. He knew the realtor's office because his cousin worked there and couldn't sell a blanket to a cold man. He told me all this in the quiet tone of a person who has seen too many people arrive too late with a plastic folder. Is there a way to pause, I asked, to keep the sale from closing while we sort it? If there's fraud on the record, a judge can do that, he said. If there's a dispute, a title company sometimes won't close until it's resolved. But if all the boxes are checked and the money's green, they will. They're not a church, they're a highway. I looked over my shoulder at Jenna. She stood very still, like if she moved wrong, she would pop a truth she couldn't reel in. I need a lawyer, I said. I know a good one. Everybody does, after they need one. I'll write a name. He wrote it on the corner of the intake form, Annika Cho. Then he told me, because he isn't paid enough to lie, you're going to be fine, or you're not. If you are, it'll be because you were careful before you needed to be. Were you careful, Miss Hart? I don't know, I thought I was, but grief makes you stack papers into a tower and call it a filing system. He nodded, slid the paper back, and lowered his voice. If you have the original title policy, the one from when you bought, your agent might help put the brakes on. Title hates unclear lines of ownership. They love clean fences. I did have the original title policy. Not because I'm a saint, but because Tom was infamous for putting anything important into a red folder labeled True North. He kept it at eye level in the hall closet behind the extra light bulbs. Every time I needed a number, I opened the hall closet and found our compass. I had moved the folder to the safe the day he died, like a woman clinging to a raft. Now I would open it again. On our way out, Jenna tugged my sleeve. "Don't tell Mom yet," she whispered, "please." "You've been living with my sister since you were 19, I said. She's cooked for you, folded your laundry, taken you to doctor's appointments, watched you fail, and loved you anyway. She is the first person I will tell if I run out of gentle. That's what sisters are for." Jenna looked like she swallowed a stone. "I'll tell her," she said, "just not today." "Today is the day," I said. I called my sister from the sidewalk. Carla answered on the fourth ring, breathless. "I'm frosting a cake," she said. "What's wrong?" "Sit," I said. "I'm standing. It's fine. The cake needs me to stand." "Sit anyway," I said, and because she knows my voice, she did. "Jenna did a thing," I said, and then I told her. I told her about the LLC, the deed, the open house. I told her about the cinnamon roll. I told her in the order that someone can understand without screaming. When I finished, the line was quiet, except for her breath. "She taught her to write her name," she said so softly I could barely hear it. "I taught her to hold a pencil and not choke it. I taught her to look people in the eyes. I did not teach her this." "You've taught her 1,000 right things," I said, because it was true. The wrong things are sticky. They stick. "Is the house gone?" she asked. "Not yet, but I need you with me." "I am with you," she said, and then, without raising her voice, she said into the air of her kitchen the sentence that would finally push Jenna off the balance beam she tried to pretend was a floor. "You will come home now, and you will pack a bag, and you will not live with Miles another night. I am not asking." "I can't leave him," Jenna whispered. "You can," Carla said, "because you must." We met at Carla's an hour later. She lives in a house that smells like lemon, even in winter.
She has a ceramic rooster on the counter that looks angrier than any animal that can't fly should look. She made tea because you have to hold something to keep from hitting people. When we sat, Jenna cried the first honest tears I'd seen on her face in a long time. "Did he tell you how to get the notary?" I asked gently. "He has a guy," she said. "Miles has a guy," I repeated. "Of course he does." "He said the guy does remote signings for the whole county," she said. "He said we didn't even have to see him in person because of the pandemic rules that never went away. We used a webcam. He held up his stamp. He watched Aunt Evie sign." I closed my eyes for a second. "Jenna," I said, "I never saw a webcam." She blinked like I'd slapped her with a glove. "You didn't?" she whispered. "No," I said. "I saw a casserole and a bouquet and 4 envelopes and your little glitter pen. I saw your hands. I did not see a webcam." She looked sick. "Then," she said, and I watched her mind run to the ledge and look down. "Then he faked the notary. He said he would never do that because that's a felony. He said the stamp was real." "The stamp can be real," I said, "and the use of it is still criminal." "How would he have done it?" she asked, and it was the question of a person walking backward out of a room while looking forward, trying not to trip.
"I don't know," I said. "He could have recorded a notary once, then overlaid. He could have used someone's login. He could have had a notary who wasn't there in any meaningful way. He could have bribed. He could have borrowed a stamp. He could have done something I'm not smart enough to invent. We don't have to know how yet. We have to know where it touched paper." The doorbell rang. It was Miles. Of course it was. He didn't want us to be alone with our math. He walked in like he owned the place, because men like him always assume they own wherever they're standing. He hugged the air and smiled with all his teeth. He smelled like the kind of cologne you wear when you're trying to convince yourself you came from money. "Evie," he said, the way a person says, "sweetheart," when they want to put you in a bucket. "I was hoping to catch you. Jenna said you had some questions." "Jenna said the notary saw me sign," I said. "Tell me the notary's name again." "Peter," he said easily. "Nice guy. Remote. He's licensed. We don't do shady." "You did shady," I said. "You did it with my house. The question is whether you did a felony to get there." He put his hands up, palms out, like a man performing innocence. "Come on," he said. "This is a family solution. You needed liquidity. We have a vehicle. We created an entity to hold the asset while we pull a line. We're solving a problem here. You'll thank me when you're cash flowing." "Stop saying cash flowing. It makes you sound like a faucet." He smiled tighter. "Evie," he said, "you signed. Tenna was there. It was all above board." "Where's the video?" I asked. He blinked, did math, and made a choice. "On the notary's end," he said. "We don't keep it because privacy." "Call him," I said. "He's working," he said. "Call anyway," I said. He sighed like a man being asked to do something beneath him and pulled out his phone. He dialed, then rolled his eyes for show. "Hey, Pete," he said. "Quick one. We did that signing for the quitclaim. The homeowner's feeling wobbly. Can we get a copy of the recording?" He listened, nodded like a man with a script, and then frowned. "Uh-huh," he said. "Yeah, okay. Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, sorry, man. Later." "What did he say?" I asked. "Compliance," Miles said. "He can't release it without a court order or a subpoena. He's not trying to lose his commission." "Of course not," I said. "No one wants to lose their commission." Carla's face had gone flat in the way of a woman who has decided where the bodies get buried. "You will leave my house," she said to Miles. "You will leave right now." He lifted his eyebrows.
This is between me and Evie, he said. This is between you and the door, she said. He looked at Jenna now, not at me. Tell your aunt to calm down, he said. Tell her she's blowing up a good thing. Jenna put her hand on the table to steady herself. You used me, she said. You used the worst day of our family's life to do this. You waited until she was hurting and you slipped a deed into a sympathy stack? I'm building a future for us, he said. You're building a case, she said. And then she surprised me. She didn't whisper. She didn't apologize. She lifted her chin and said the sentence she needed to say to grow a new backbone. I'm done, she said. We're done. Get out. He laughed once, sharp like a knife hitting bone. You think you can walk? He asked lightly. You're in this. Your name's on the LLC. Your face is on the recorder's website. You want to come clean? Go ahead. But it won't just be my life that gets complicated. Good, I said. Complicated is where paper gets honest. I called Anika Cho from the driveway, and she picked up because Ledbetter had texted her that a heart was coming. Anika doesn't waste words. She said, bring me the packet, bring me your title policy, bring me anything with your signature from the last 2 months, bring the realtor flyer, bring Jenna if she's ready to be a witness, bring coffee. Her office is in a brick building that used to be a dentist. The waiting room still has a painting of teeth because nostalgia is a disease. We sat on a couch that tried too hard to feel expensive, and when Anika walked out, she was wearing flats, not heels, which is how you know a woman plans to stand through a fight. She shook my hand and then Jenna's, looked at the papers before she looked at me, and nodded once like a person seeing a puzzle she wanted. I can stop the sale for a minute, she said. Not long. If the buyer's aggressive, they'll push, but most investors hate turbulence. I can file a lis pendens to cloud the title. It will put the world on notice that the property is in litigation. We'll argue that the instrument is void for fraud in the execution. That means you didn't know what you were signing, as opposed to fraud in the inducement, which is you knew but you were tricked about why. Fraud in the execution is stronger. It makes the deed a nullity if we win. We'll do it now. What about the notary? I asked. Notary affects process, not substance, unless it's forged. If the notary participated, that's criminal, and it helps civilly. If he didn't, but someone faked his presence or stamped outside his observation, that's also criminal. But our best line is to show how you signed. We need proof of context. I have the red folder, I said, and I have a habit. What habit? She asked. Tom and I recorded a little voice memo whenever we signed anything that mattered, I said. It wasn't fancy, just 30 seconds. We'd say the date, what the paper was, why we were signing, what our understanding was. He started it because he said memory is slippery. We called them signing notes. I stopped after he died, but after the funeral, I did one for the stack, on autopilot, like brushing teeth. I didn't say all the documents because I didn't know what they were, but I said enough. Annika's mouth did a small, very lawyer smile. You said enough? She asked. I said, envelope from the mortgage company, 2 from the insurance, 1 from the county, signing to update the life insurance beneficiary and the mortgage name. Jenna is here with casseroles. Good, she said. If you can show you thought you were signing insurance, not a deed, that's our hook. If we can show the notary wasn't present, that's our nail. If we can show a pattern, Miles having done this before, that's our hammer. Jenna pulled her coat tighter, like she was cold even inside. I can call Luis, the barista. He heard Miles talking about the deed at Fairgrounds. He said Miles was bragging to someone about making money without scuffing his shoes. Luis told me once in a joke way, and I told him to mind his business. I didn't want to hear it. I can call him.
Call. Ask him to write everything he remembers. Ask if he has security camera audio. It might not be good enough for trial, but it's a map. We'll get a subpoena if we need it. Jenna called. Luis answered like he'd been waiting for the chance to do a good thing. He agreed to send Annika everything, including timestamps, including a description of the man listening to Miles that day, a man in a Navy cap with the logo of a title company 2 counties over. Annika's eyebrows rose. If the buyer is tied to a title company, they'll move fast, she said. We cloud the title now. She typed while she talked. Do you have a smart device at home? Doorbell camera, smart speaker? I have a doorbell camera, I said, and one of those little plugs you can talk to that makes a lamp obey you. Your doorbell camera records motion and audio, she asked. Just motion, I said, unless someone rings or talks loud. Then we pray they did, she said calmly. We want anything showing an unfamiliar notary or no one. We want timestamps. We want to stitch a timeline. Memory is unreliable. Timestamps aren't. We drove to my house with an engine that sounded like a person grinding their teeth. Jenna was quiet the whole way, like she knew any words she chose would be wrong. When we pulled up, the open house signs were gone, but there were 2 cars idling on my street. People with money don't idle. They park with confidence. These were idlers. Miles stood near the porch, pretending to be on his phone, pretending not to see us, pretending to be a man who can still steer outcomes with posture. He had always been talented at pretending. Annika didn't pretend. She walked straight up to him and held out a sheet for him to read without giving him time to brace. Notice of list pendants, she said. Consider the title clouded. He scanned, smiled without teeth, and shook his head like a principal reading a clever excuse. Cute, he said. Temporary. Sometimes temporary is all you need to see the pattern, she said. Sometimes it's all you need to peel back the paint. We went inside. My dog Mo wagged his entire back half like a flag. I scratched his ears, then went to the hall closet and pulled the safe box. My hands were steady now because I had a job. A person with a job is a person in a boat. I opened the safe, pulled the red True North folder, and laid it on the dining table like a heart. Inside, our lives lay in stacks and tabs. I pulled the title policy. I pulled the previous deed. I pulled a map with our lines drawn in red pencil. Then I pulled my phone and opened voice memos, scrolled to the week after the funeral, and found the 32-second note labeled Paperwork Jenna brought, casseroles. We listened. It was no one's idea of a movie, but it was mine. In my voice, you could hear grief's chew. In the background, you could hear the oven's fan. You could hear the clink of a spoon. And you could hear Jenna say, sign here and here and here. And you could hear me say, I'm glad the life insurance paperwork is straightforward. I can't do another hour on the phone. And then you could hear why we were going to win. Because in the middle, you could hear the doorbell. Mo barked, and you could hear me say, who is it? And you could hear Jenna say, don't answer, it's probably another casserole. And you could hear the doorbell ring again, and you could hear the front door creak because I opened it anyway. And you could hear nobody. No hello, no human voice identifying as a notary, no stamp thud, no oath, no, do you understand what you're signing? There was only silence. Then the door closed, and Jenkins from 3 houses down asked across the porch if I was okay. I brought lasagna, he said. Sorry to bother. We stopped the recording. Annika exhaled like a person who just slid a piece into a puzzle that had been holding up the wall. That is good, she said. It's not conclusive by itself, but paired with your affidavit, paired with Jenna's testimony, paired with any notary irregularity we find, it's a rope. Is it enough to keep me in my house? I asked.
It increases my confidence by a factor of 3, she said, and my confidence is obnoxiously predictive. The next 2 days were a loop. Calls, statements, copies, text messages we printed because Annika likes paper you can slap on a table. The Secretary of State's office confirmed Peter Vale existed, but we couldn't get him to return a call. The title company put the file on hold when Annika emailed the list pendants with the voice memo attached. The buyer's agent used a lot of capital letters about time is of the essence and threatened to sue for tortious interference. Annika responded that tortious interference would be a fun spelling test for him at his deposition, and we would bring cookies. He stopped writing in capitals. Miles, meanwhile, tried to wriggle. He left voicemails for me that sounded like lullabies and threats. We can make this all go away, he said, or we can take it to a place where everyone gets hurt. He texted Jenna photos of their duffel bags and a fake lease for a place he claimed to have found. He sent Carla a long apology with a short knife hidden inside. I'm sorry you feel this way. He blocked and unblocked our numbers based on a schedule only he could see. None of it worked. What did work was boring. Boring wins. Lewis sent the security footage from the day he heard Miles talking about paper fixing and owner fatigue. It wasn't crystal clear, but it had voices, and voices tell the truth more often than people think. The camera captured Miles saying, "You get an instrument signed when they're dull and keep the press on until the ink is dry." It captured him saying, "It's not theft if they signed." And the other man laughing and saying, "It's theft if a judge doesn't like you." It captured Miles bragging that secret sauce is always the stamp, and that stamps are like house keys. You just have to know who left theirs under the mat.
Annika sent a preservation letter to the notary's employer. We learned that the notary had resigned a week after our recording. We learned that his commission would remain on record, but his access to the remote platform was suspended pending internal review. We learned that a person using his login completed 3 signings on our street the day after my husband's funeral, mine, and 2 in the cul-de-sac for a refinance scheme that looked like a cousin to mine. Annika smiled without smiling. Patterns, she said. Judges love patterns. The first hearing was a Wednesday at 9 in a courtroom that smelled like old books and Lysol. The judge's name was Gardner. He looked like a person who disappoints children gently. Miles sat 2 rows behind us with a man in a suit too shiny. Jenna sat next to me and held my hand so tight the bones clicked. Carla sat on my other side with a face I wouldn't cross with a halberd. Annika stood, introduced me, and in 5 minutes helped the judge understand not just the deed, but the life the deed tried to erase. She never raised her voice. She never called Miles a thief. She called him the man who encouraged my client's niece into a series of decisions that mischaracterized what was happening. It's something to watch a person eviscerate someone using a spoon. The judge didn't decide everything that day. Judges almost never do. But he did grant our injunction. He did say, I am unconvinced the status quo should be disturbed. He did say, we will maintain possession with the person who maintains the dog, which made the courtroom laugh in a way that cleared the air. He set a date for an evidentiary hearing. He told the title company they would not close. He told the buyer's lawyer to sit down. He told Miles's lawyer to tell his client to stop contacting me. And the minute he did, Miles texted me, "Nice show." I screenshotted it and sent it to Annika. She sent back a smiley face that looked like a guillotine. At home, in the sudden quiet lull that happens after the first court thing, when you realize the war has begun and you are very tired, I made grilled cheese for Jenna like she was 10 and had earned it. She ate like a soldier, quick and grateful. He said it's not a big deal, she whispered at one point, which is what abusers say about things that are, in fact, the only deal. He said rich people do it all the time. I wiped crumbs off the plate and looked her in the eyes. Listen to me, I said. There is a difference between tax strategy and theft. There is a difference between liquidity and larceny. There is a difference between borrowing and breaking. Don't let a man who has never built anything convince you that breaking is building. She nodded and cried quietly because some truths don't go down with water. The night before the evidentiary hearing, I couldn't sleep. I walked the house like it was a person, touched the door frames, stood in the doorway of the room that used to be Tom's shop, and apologized to him for letting a pen come between me and the thing we made. I stood on the porch in my coat and looked at the neighbor's light on, and the world felt both huge and very small. Mo pressed his head against my hip like an anchor. In the morning, I put on the black suit I keep for funerals and the one wedding where the groom cried more than the bride. I pinned my hair up messy like I always do and told myself that dignity sometimes looks like running to catch a bus. We sat in the same pew, the four of us, and when the judge called my name, I stood with Annika and took the oath with a steadier hand than I expected. Annika started me at the beginning, my husband, our house, the folder. She walked me through the voice memo. She asked me what I believed I was signing. Insurance forms, I said, and my voice didn't shake. Then she called Jenna. My niece looked like a person who had been turned inside out and asked to smile. She told the truth in full paragraphs. She said, I thought it would help. She said, I'm not proud of anything that happened after the first bad decision. She said, he told me it was legal because family. She said, I'm not blaming him. She took the blame she could carry and set the rest down. Annika called Louis. He wore his best t-shirt and told the court about the day he made a cappuccino for a man who bragged about stealing houses he called paper flips. He said, I'm not a lawyer, but I know bragging when I hear it. Then Annika called a person I had never met, a compliance manager from the remote notary platform, who testified by video with the bored precision of someone who reads logs for a living. He said, on the date in question, a session was logged under commission number 470832. The IP address does not match the registered notary's residence, nor his backup location. It matches a residential IP assigned to an address associated with a Mr. Miles Porter. He said, the video session is missing. That is an anomaly. He said, we have screen captures indicating the signatory was in a kitchen and there is a dog. The signatory's lips move, but audio is inconsistent with a two-way oath. Annika didn't show the missing video because there was no video. She showed the platform's big corporate seal and said the simplest thing a lawyer can say. Sometimes absence is a presence. Sometimes it's the loudest thing in the room. Miles's lawyer objected to everything in triplicate, made faces, then pivoted into a performance he thought would charm the judge. These are all just technicalities, and this is a family matter better handled at a table than a bench, and my client is a visionary misunderstood by people who prefer W-2s to freedom. The judge looked over his glasses and said, Counselor, your client is misunderstood because the record is not a poem. It is a stack of exhibits, and they do not love him. When we left, I felt like I'd run a marathon in a coat. We didn't have a final order yet, but Anika squeezed my arm in that way she does when she's already writing the order in her mind. The order came a week later. The judge made the lis pendens permanent, pending resolution. He declared the quitclaim void ab initio, words that mean it never happened if life were fair. He referred the notary matter to the county attorney.
He suggested in a footnote that read like a wink that people who use LLCs to mask simple theft should reconsider their tax preparers. He returned possession to the person who sleeps in the master bedroom with the dog that barks at the mailman. He scolded the realtor for listing with insufficient diligence. He ordered the buyer to stop contacting me about opportunities to work together harmoniously. He set a date for a bench trial on damages. Miles didn't take it like a gentleman. People like him don't like consequences, they like witnesses. He called Jenna 12 times in one day from a block number and left 12 voicemails that were little songs of rage. He told her she ruined his life. She saved them. The county attorney loved them like fresh bread. They indicted him on forgery, identity theft, and tampering with a public record. The notary resigned and then, after an investigation, pleaded to a misdemeanor for negligence. He had loaned his login to a friend who turned out to be Miles. He cried in court. I didn't care. You can cry and still have done the thing. At the criminal sentencing, they let us give statements. Carla went first and turned the room into a place where mother anger is holy. She talked about teaching her daughter to tie her shoes and drive a car and tell the truth. And then she talked about what it feels like to watch your child get unstitched by a man who never learned to thread a needle. I went second. I said, I fix things for a living, Your Honor. Wood tells the truth if you listen to the grain. Paper does too. It took us a minute, but we heard it. Miles got time. Not forever. Enough to miss a few summers. Enough to miss Jenna's birthday twice. Enough to lose the confidence of the people he tells his lies to. Enough to learn the tone of a metal door closing behind you. He will call it unfair until his last day, like men like him do. I don't care.
Jenna moved back into Carla's and got a job at the hospital answering phones. She pays me $100 a month until forever because she needs to. I told her she doesn't have to, but the truth is, it's good for both of us. Money is a language we're learning to speak honestly again. She goes to therapy on Tuesdays and brings me muffins on Thursdays. She doesn't bake them, she buys them. That's progress too. The house stayed mine. The scar in the kitchen stayed. We put a tiny frame around it like a joke, and when people ask what happened, I tell them the truth. Cast iron and joy. I built the first ADU in the spring, slower than I planned, and steadier than I'd have believed in January. It's behind the house of a nurse who works nights. Her mother lives there now and sits in the doorway in the afternoons and tells me about birds. I think Tom would have liked that. He liked people who earned their naps. One Saturday in June, I set up a folding table on my sidewalk with a plate of cookies and a big sign that said, "Ask me about titles." People stopped on their way back from the farmer's market. I showed them what a deed looks like. I showed them where your name goes and why it matters that it's typed the same way every time. I told them to keep a red folder in the hall closet at eye level. I told them that grief makes you efficient and efficiency makes you vulnerable and vulnerability can make you pray. I told them to record themselves when they sign important things, not because it will definitely save them, but because future you is a stranger who deserves your help. I told them to love their nieces and nephews with their eyes open. At the end of the day, a woman my age with hair the color of storm clouds stood at my table and didn't say anything for a full minute. Then she said, "I signed something last year I didn't read." And I said, "You want a cookie or a chair?" And she said, "Both." And we started there. My life has become a place where people bring me the things they don't understand to fix. And if that isn't what a home is, I don't know what is. In September, the judge issued the civil order. He awarded me attorney's fees and costs and a small amount for emotional distress because he's a judge and not a poet. He awarded punitive damages because he wanted to teach a class called "You Cannot Do This in My County." He wrote, in a line I will keep in my red folder forever, "The court finds that Miss Hart's diligence before the fact and after saved her home. This is a case study in why paper trails matter." Anika printed the sentence and framed it for her office. That night, Jenna came over with a single candle stuck in a cupcake, like we were 5 and celebrating a win that needs sugar. We ate it with forks, which is the right way to eat a cupcake, if you ask me. She looked around my living room like she was seeing it for the first time. "I thought I lost this for you," she said. "You almost did," I said, "because truth is a muscle we were training, and then you helped me get it back." "I don't deserve your forgiveness," she said. "No one does," I said. "That's why it's called forgiveness and not change of address." She laughed so hard she snorted, and I pretended not to hear it so she could be dignified. Before she left, she stood in the doorway and fiddled with the strap of her purse. "She want to be different," she said. "I don't want to be the girl who believed him because he had the loudest voice. I want to be brave in the right direction." "You will be," I said. "Brave is practice. Practice is boring. Boring wins." In November, the first snow came gentle. I raked leaves badly because the point of raking leaves isn't perfection, it's movement. The realtor who listed my house stopped by on her way to show a new build. She said she was sorry, in that way people say when they realize they were used as a gear in someone else's engine. I told her to be nosier. "Nosy saves lives," I said. She laughed and said she'd put it on a mug.
On Christmas Eve, I set an extra plate at the table the way Tom and I always did. Not because we believed a stranger would come, but because we liked to believe we could make room for one if they did. The doorbell rang at 7. It was Louis with a brown paper bag and a look like he wasn't sure he should be there. "I made enchiladas," he said. "My grandmother would haunt me if I showed up empty-handed." "Come in," I said, and Mo agreed. We ate, and Louis told me stories about the year he thought he would be a lawyer, and the month he spent in a tent in Yellowstone learning to listen to wind. He asked me for advice about a boy who likes to plan everything and another boy who doesn't know what the word plan means. I told him to choose boredom because boredom is just peace that hasn't learned to style her hair. He laughed until he hiccuped. It is spring again, as I tell you this. The scar in the kitchen looks like a river on a map. The ADU's garden is full of spinach because old women love spinach like men love grills. Jenna is taking a night class on property law because she wants to learn the language of the monster that almost ate her. Carla is dating a man who builds decks badly and asks for help, which is my favorite kind of man. Anika sends me the occasional picture of a judgment that makes her smile, which is rarer than rainbows. Ledbetter got his pie. Condra got hers. The county recorder's office has a new bell that works now when you hit it gently. I hit it too hard the other day and apologized to the air. And me? I still fix things for a living. I still keep paper like it might be a weapon or a raft. I still miss Tom. Loud on Sunday mornings and quiet when the baseball game starts. I still talk to him when I sand. Once in a while, I ask him if he saw the day I nearly lost the house, and he says, in the voice in my head that belongs to him, "You were never gonna lose it. You have more nails than anyone I've ever met."
If you've ever been tricked by paper, if you've ever been saved by a voice memo, if you've ever kept a red folder because you didn't know what else to hold on to, I see you. If you're at a table right now with a pen in your hand and grief in your mouth, stop. Put the pen down. Read the first page twice. Take a video. Call someone who loves you enough to be boring. And if you've done the thing already and it hurts, take a deep breath and find your red folder. It might not be red. It might be blue. It might be a shoebox. It might be the email you forgot you sent to yourself. But it's there. It's the piece of wood that holds the whole wall. And if you can't find it, call me. I'm in Cedar Ridge. My porch light is on. I will make you a grilled cheese and show you where the signatures go. The last time Miles looked at me, it was from a table with a plastic cup of water. He tried to stare me down. I looked back like a person who has painted ceilings without a drop cloth and survived. He flicked his eyes toward Jenna like a man tossing a cigarette butt. I didn't flinch. I don't play with fire in rooms full of paper. When I got home that day, I set another plate at the table, not for a stranger, but for a future day when I will forget why I fought so hard. It will be there to remind me, homes are not just boards and debt and paint and insurance. Homes are the place where you learn the difference between a signature and consent, between a stamp and a promise, between someone who wants to own the air you breathe and someone who wants to fix your shelf because you asked. If you made it to the end with me, leave me a note. Tell me about the thing you signed and the way you felt. Tell me about the person you forgave or the person you didn't. Tell me if you've got a red folder, and if not, what color it will be. And if you've got a man in your life who thinks paperwork is a heist, tell him to go buy a stamp and a mirror and practice saying, "I'm sorry." He'll need it. I am Evelyn Hart, and this is my house. I am not moving. I am not listing. I am not cooperating with anyone who calls theft liquidity. I am here with my dog and my scarred floor and my red folder and my porch light in a town where the coffee is good and the open house signs point somewhere else. If the mailman rings, I will answer. If the doorbell camera lights up, I will look. If my niece knocks, I will open, because we do not close doors on people who return different than they left, even if they hurt us. We protect what we build what we protect. That's home. That's the whole story.